here's the thing. I care because I want to know what's happening. But and yes, there are some changes people need to make, and there are some, acceptances you need to be aware of. Like, you need to realize that your reach may go down. Like, get over it. It's okay. It's happening to everybody. Stop freaking out about it, because if you care that much about your Facebook reach, it means you're not caring about everything else that you should care about. Facebook should be one portion of what you care about. And if you care that much, then you're probably caring too much about Facebook. But it is one of those things where I'm like, they're not saying that your reach is going to drop. They're not saying that you are not going to get exposure. They're not saying you're not going to get engagement. They're saying you have to create content that's going to generate that kind of interaction. And that interaction is based around conversations. They want people that are commenting and you're responding. They want content that is valuable, that's not just shareable content, but that drives conversations. So the silly memes and the stupid questions and the, post a photo of your dog in the comments below. Like, yeah, that generates comments, but it's stupid. Like, no one cares. Like, sure, you want to show off your dog, but are you really looking at everyone else's pictures? No. Like, it's an engagement bait that page is using to get comments on a post, and Facebook is aware of that. And so they're trying to get things that get meaningful interactions, actual conversation back and forth, actual dialogue. And I think that's a good thing. It's called social media, meaning you're supposed to actually interact with people. It's customer service. It's personal conversations. It's adding to a conversation. It's helping somebody, answering a question, providing advice, insight. Like, that's a conversation. And so that's what people need to focus on. All the rest of it is still a matter of importance, but that is the key thing. And that really comes down to generating comments, and authentic comments is the direction people need to go. This whole Facebook zero, no. The whole Facebook Armageddon, no. That is not the case at all.
I agree with you on that. And I could say this too with YouTube too, because they just recently put a requirement to monetization. And I saw like how some were complaining about it, but I was like, what the heck? Why are you guys complaining? I mean, it's their right to do that. And the fact of the matter is, they cannot put their stuff. You cannot just. It's like you cannot really build your business on rented land, and that's what these platforms are, really.
Absolutely, they're rented land, and not only are they rented land, but like you said, they can do whatever they want with them. We're the guests in the house. Like, if they want to change the house rules, we don't have a say. I mean, they tried that every time somebody changes something, right? Like, Facebook introduced the algorithm, everyone freaked out. Instagram introduced the algorithm, everybody freaked out. Snapchat came out and said they're like changing the whole user interface, everyone freaked out. And guess what? Every time there are literal petitions with tens of thousands of signatures of people begging them to change it back, and they never do, because they don't really care what you want. They care what you want, but they also understand a business perspective. They understand that when you go from having 100,000 users to 100 million users to a billion users, that things change, and you have to categorize your platform accordingly. And we, as marketers, as users, as people, have to adapt or move on. And if you care that much about those changes, then that means you've invested way too much time and energy into that one platform. Now, the whole YouTube thing, absolutely. If you're making money off of it and that change impacted you, I'm sorry. I can understand the frustration, but again, then you should be driving people to your website. You should be driving people somewhere else where you can get them to pay you money, or use other affiliate processes to get affiliate revenue. Like, if that's all you're relying on, that's your own fault. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, definitely agree. And for you guys, I'll take it. And for you guys that's watching, this is live streaming. I'm just now. I'm right behind the Starbucks for you guys that's listening to this show. I'm watching. I'm about to listen to this show, but I just got a Starbucks, and right behind me is the Starbucks. And so, anyway, yeah. So, basically, but here's a question, because the fact that live stream is kind of here to stay. Why do you think people or businesses or anyone should embrace live streaming?
I think you should definitely embrace it. I mean, what we're doing right now is live stream, and it drives a completely different engagement. When you look at the Facebook world, that's part of that meaningful interaction. I host my Instagram live every 2 weeks, every other Wednesday, And I do it on Instagram because that's where I get the engagement. I get the people that show up. They stay for as long as they possibly can, even if it's not the full hour that I'm usually on camera, but they'll come back and watch the replay if they can't watch the whole thing. But they have conversations. They're typing in the chat as the conversation goes on live. They're part of the conversation. It's not watching a video that was overly edited and proofed and perfected and then posted, and everyone just kind of watches it and repeat. Live generates conversation. Live is real life. Things fall off the walls, doorbells ring, people bring you Starbucks in the middle of an interview. But it's what makes it relatable, right? Like that's fun. Like it takes the monotony out of a boring video and it makes it real life. It makes it something like you are sitting across from that person having a genuine conversation. And that's what people want on social nowadays. Like we want interaction, not being talked to. We want to have that conversation. And live video does that, whether you're doing it on YouTube, whether you're doing it on Facebook, whether you're doing it on Snapchat, whether you're doing it on Instagram, whatever it is you're using, having that live interaction where your audience is paramount to driving success for your brand, and that transparency, that authenticity that everyone's been talking about for like ever. I mean, that's been the buzzword for at least 3 years now, is that authenticity and transparency. And nothing is more authentic than live video, because people see how bad you stutter, trip over your words, make a fool of yourself, say the wrong things, look like an idiot. I mean, there is nothing more transparent than live video. Say.
And in a lot of ways, that's kind of what Facebook wants too. In some ways,
Yes.
Really any platform, basically.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. They want those interactions, that quote meaningful interaction. But they do, like they want people to show up and be on the platform. And if you go live and you're live for 20 minutes and someone's watching you for 20 minutes, that means they just spent 20 minutes on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever it is. That's where you are. And that's 20 minutes of undivided attention on one platform. That's really hard to get nowadays in a world where we have things bombarding us from all sides all the time. And we've got dings and messages and pop-ups and flares and everything's going on when we're on the computer or on our phone. So if you can watch something with undivided attention for even 20 minutes, that is hugely valuable from a business perspective for somebody like Facebook or Instagram or Periscope or YouTube or that sort of thing.
All right, and I'm going to get back to this in a bit, but I want to talk about your book, your third book, which you co-authored, called Instagram for Business for Dummies, which you have it right
Always
in front of you.
Handy.
Awesome. Can you share with us about that book, and really, how did you get approached to co-author that book with your collaborators in for the Dummies publisher, whatever they are called?
Yeah. So, and here's the thing people have to understand. I have self-published a couple books. Love them. Easy to do. Self-publishing is the best thing in the whole wide world. I just go up on Amazon. I get money every month. It's great. But they're not like a real book. And I always say that. People are like, you've already published books. Why are you so excited about this one? I'm like, because it seems like a real book. Like it's from like a real publisher and it's on like real bookshelves. It's not just, something I wrote over a weekend. But I never really cared. In this industry, social media changes so much that like literally the moment you hit publish on a book, it's out of date, right? Like things change that fast. And the only book I ever wanted to write, and I said this 2 years ago, I said the only book I ever want to write is a Dummies book, because of the fact that it's such a prestigious recognition of being in the Dummies series. That's something people genuinely respect. It's one thing to say you published a book, but being in the Dummies kind of community has a different level of recognition. So I always said that, but you can't cold pitch a Dummies publisher, author, editor. Like they only work on who they want to bring in. So you can't send them requests. You can't send them samples. They will not look at them. So I was like, well, this is never going to happen. I don't know nobody. So it turns out that my co-author, Eric, has actually written multiple Dummies books. He does a lot of the tech side of things, like Windows for, Windows for Dummies or iPhone for Dummies, like a lot of like the tech side type of stuff. So they had reached out to him, since he's a regular author for them, and said, hey, we want to do an Instagram book. Do you want to do it? Do you know anybody you can co-author with? And so he has his friend, Corey, my other co-author, who's a social media manager. She runs an agency, and she's very good with Instagram. So he reached out to her, and she was like, of course. She's like, but we can't do it without Jenn Herman. So on that note, they reached out to me, so it became the three of us. So I'm entirely grateful to them, because if it wasn't for the two of them, this would not have happened in my world. But, you know, Wiley Publishers, who is the publisher behind the Dummy series, they were ready to do an Instagram book. It was a very, very arduous process. It was not something that was easy to do. It was absolutely exhausting. I wanted to quit multiple times. Working with not the co-authors, like they were great, but just the amount of reading and editing it. I proofread every single word of these 289 pages, because everything that my co-authors wrote, I read through from my personal teaching perspective as well as a technical perspective to say, is this accurate or not? And then it still went to their proof editor for technical review. But just like enough thing, you've got editors involved, and you've got, you know, these technical editors involved, and then you've got the publisher that wants the marketing done, and all of, like, there's a lot of moving parts that go into this book. Which now that it's published and now that it sits here on my shelf and it's beautiful and it's real, it was all worth it. But I will admit there were a couple times I was like, nope, I'm out, I'm done. I never want to look at this book again. So I'm glad it's done. I'm glad it's published. It is the answer to every Instagram question you have. It is literally 289 pages. Like, when I tell people I can talk about Instagram for 6 hours, I'm not lying, because literally we wrote 289 pages about Instagram. So if you think Instagram is a pretty picture, post and done, let me tell you, there's 288 more pages of information you need to know. So it is really in-depth. If you have any questions, the answer is in there. And as Instagram evolves, you know, we will eventually at some point probably do a version 2.0 or some sort of a rewrite with additional content. But for right now, it is relatively accurate. It published in January, so there might be a couple things that are a little bit off with new recent updates, but it's actually very, very accurate still. So we're proud of that.
Awesome. Now let's go into